The government just bought stock. That sentence alone should make you pause, because the last time Washington took equity in a U.S. company, the financial system was collapsing. But here's the twist. This time, there's no crisis. Everything's fine, according to this administration. No meltdown, no bailout. Instead, Trump's administration is buying in by choice. And the companies in play, Intel and U.S. Steel. Two industries at the heart of America's economic and national security future. So why is the White House suddenly turned into a Wall Street? And what does it mean for investors like you and I? That's worth talking about. All right, so I want to take a minute to share my thoughts in reference to just this week's announcements, which I believe was overshadowed by yesterday's market activity that just sent everything up and out into the atmosphere in reference to just the euphoria around the anticipation of a cut next month. But in the meantime, the government is getting involved in the private sector directly. And that, my friends, is something to be concerned about, because not only is it unconstitutional for the U.S. government to invest in a company directly using taxpayer funds, i.e. turning a grant into a equity stake, but also the last time they did that weren't really good because we were in a crisis. But in this video here, I'm going to share my 2 cents as to why this resembles a lot of other things worth mentioning. So as always, if you guys enjoy this, definitely hit that thumbs up. Drop a comment down below. Let me know your thoughts. We're curious to find out what you guys think. And make sure if you're new, subscribe so you don't miss a quick take when I put one of these things out. But on yesterday, Trump administration announced it was acquiring a 10% stake in Intel. 10%, that's not a trivial amount to say the least. It makes the U.S. government one of Intel's largest shareholders. And this isn't some emergency intervention. As I mentioned, the official line is clear. The government wants direct influence in semiconductors and artificial intelligence, industry shaping the next century of power. And so the first point I want to make is this a break from history? To understand how unusual this is, we need to rewind a little bit. So go back to 2008 and 2009. The Treasury took stake in Citigroup, AIG, and General Motors. But those weren't investments. They were actual bailouts. It's lifelines to stop the financial system from imploding. And once the dust settled, the government sold off its shares and swore it wasn't in the business of owning companies, but that was the precedent they set at that moment. And so now that precedent is shattered, because the Intel purchase isn't about saving a dying company. It's about steering the future of the entire industry. And so is this going to be the golden share playbook is the next thing worth mentioning, because Intel isn't just the first domino. Earlier this year, during the Nippon Steel and U.S. Steel merger, the government quietly secured what's called a golden share. And so that single share gives Washington veto power over major decisions. So you got plant closures, facility upgrades, even the ability to appoint a director to the board. So in practice, that means the U.S. Steel can't make moves that conflict with national security interests. So the golden share is a lever of control, and it's real minor to say the least, but decisive if that lever is ever needed. So this is a different form of ownership. So it's not a bailout, not a takeover, but a hybrid part investment, part regulation, and part overseer of a publicly traded company. So now with Intel, we're seeing the next evolution, which is actual equity. So you got billions in taxpayers' money and a voting block inside the company. And so the bigger picture worth mentioning is that this is state capitalism, or crony capitalism, becoming official within this country. So here where it's getting interesting. So for decades, China has practiced state capitalism, or what we would consider crony capitalism as well. So the government directly shaped industries it views as strategic. So from telecom to electronic vehicles, Beijing has never been shy about pulling the strings. So America, by contrast, claimed to run on free markets. But the government regulated, it offered subsidies and tax breaks, but it didn't sit at the shareholders' table calling the shots until now. So by buying into Intel and securing power as U.S. Steel, Washington is signaling a new era that the government isn't just a referee, it's stepping onto the field. So that has massive implications for competition, for investors, as well as for geopolitics. And so as an investor, there's some things that people should really be concerned with, which is primarily just 3 things. You got market signaling, policy as strategy, and the exit or entrenchment concept is worth touching on. And so first, for the market signaling. So when the government takes a stake, it's effectively putting its thumb on the scale. So Intel now carries a kind of implicit backing that competitors don't. So that changes risk perception 100%, because Intel now can't fail because the government has a share in the company. And the next one is policy as a strategy now. So expect more interventions where national security overlaps technology. So you got chips, energy, critical minerals, aka the rare minerals that the government is also investing in as well. And so the playbook appears to be expanding just beyond what we know about. And then last, you got the exment or the entrenchment side of things. So while the government eventually will sell out at some point, as it did in 2008, or is this the start of a permanent role as a shareholder? So the answer determines whether this is a one-off anomaly or whether or not it's going to become the new normal. And so there's a much bigger part that's worth touching on, and that's why this matters beyond just mere investments. So even if you never own a share of Intel, here's a broader question. Do you want your government acting as an investor in private companies? Because that's not capitalism as we've known it. It's something else, something closer to an industrial policy with skin in the game. So supporters say it's necessary that America can't afford to have semiconductors, steel, and AI purely to market forces, not what China is using every single lever of power that they have. And so critics also warn it's a slippery slope. So once the government starts picking winners, markets are distorted, clearly. So you got efficiency that dies and corruption will definitely take off. So both can be true, and that's what makes this moment so historic, but not in a good sense, in my opinion. And so at the end of the day, we're going to find out how this all plays out. But clearly, when the government gets involved in anything, we all know how it ends. There's going to be winners and there's going to be losers. And the average person, depending upon the results of their investments in regards to these companies, will end up being the losers because the big boys already put skin in the game well before the government announced this, and they're going to be the ones that walk away with millions, if not some with billions. So when you hear that Washington just bought 10% of Intel, don't brush it off as another headline, because this isn't about one company. It's about the shape of America's capitalistic model, which died a long time ago, of course. But then again, it's been the bedrock of what we've been sold for the last 50 years. So because the government is no longer just a referee, but also a player on the field, then the game itself has changed, and it's becoming more obvious that it's rigged and not in our favor. So once again, taking a minute, sharing my 2 cents on a topic that is very important, that didn't get much attention just because of the way that Jerome Powell hinted at the words may warrant some policy changes. But once again, now that the government's involved officially in buying Intel, it's good to say there's going to be more to come. So be on the lookout for a sharp correction in September if FOMC do not pivot, because the government will have more of an excuse to get in and buy more companies with funds they don't even have. So there you go, my friends. The big psyop is becoming more of a reality show. And it's unfortunate that the average mom and pop who's dependent upon these companies in their portfolios will be the ones left holding the bag. But then again, I'm sure you knew that already. But anyway, curious to hear what you guys think. If you found value, as always, definitely drop a comment down below. Let me know your thoughts. We'd love to learn from you guys as well. And then also, make sure you subscribe, take this and share so people can get an alternative perspective on stuff that they won't hear from the mainstream. But other than that, enjoy your weekend.